The phone rang at 2 a.m. I squinted at the screen, seeing my sister Sarah calling. My stomach tightened. Another emergency. Another request for money. For years I had been the financial backbone of my family, sending thousands of dollars monthly to support them. But lately the weight of this responsibility had been crushing me. I had begun to wonder what would happen if I finally said no. Would they understand my situation, or would their love prove conditional? Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe, and comment what you would do if your family treated your generosity as an obligation. My father died from a heart attack when I was 13, leaving my mother alone to raise 4 children. As the oldest, I stepped up immediately, taking whatever part-time jobs I could find. I delivered newspapers before school, bagged groceries on weekends, and mowed lawns during summers. Every dollar I earned went straight to my mother to help with bills. While other kids played sports or hung out with friends, I was counting change and helping my mother budget for groceries. I remember watching my friends go to school dances while I covered night shifts at the local diner. My mother worked 2 jobs herself, cleaning houses during the day and waiting tables at night. But it was never enough for a family of 5. Despite these challenges, I maintained straight, as in school. Education became my ticket out of poverty. By senior year, I had secured a full scholarship to study computer science at State University. Even during college, I worked 3 part-time jobs between classes to send money home. My siblings, Sarah, Jake, and Melissa, were still young and needed support. Those college years were brutal. I lived on ramen noodles and coffee while maintaining my GPA for scholarship requirements. When classmates complained about studying for finals, they had no idea. I had just finished an 8-hour shift at the campus security desk. I never joined them for spring break trips or weekend parties. Every spare dollar and minute went to either studying or working. Graduation day was one of the proudest moments of my life. I had landed a job at Tech Solutions with a starting salary of $120,000. For someone who grew up counting pennies for bus fare, this felt like winning the lottery. My mother cried when I called her with the news, saying she always knew I would succeed. My first major financial decision was paying off my mother's mortgage. The look of disbelief on her face when I handed her the paperwork, showing 0 balance, made all those sleepless nights worthwhile. Next came helping Sarah through nursing school, then covering Jake's college tuition. I even started a fund for Melissa, who was still in high school. Being the family hero gave me a sense of purpose and pride I had never experienced before. The warning signs started subtly. Sarah graduated from nursing school, but seemed unable to hold a job for more than a few months. There was always some conflict with a supervisor or intolerable working conditions. Each time she quit, she needed bridge money for rent and bills, until she found something new. Jake proved even more concerning. Despite me paying his full tuition and living expenses, his grades were slipping. He claimed college was more stressful than expected and needed additional funds for study materials and tutoring. I later discovered these materials included a new gaming system and weekend trips with friends. Melissa, watching her older siblings, began to expect the same treatment. Before she even applied for colleges, she was sending me links to apartments near campuses, assuming I would cover everything. My mother, instead of encouraging independence, became their advocate, calling me whenever one of them had a financial need. Each month the requests grew larger and more frequent. I felt uneasy but rationalized it as temporary support while they found their footing. They were family after all. How could I say no when I had the means to help? Everything changed when I met Laura at a financial wellness seminar my company hosted. She worked as a financial advisor and spoke about building healthy money habits. We connected instantly, sharing similar backgrounds of growing up with financial instability. As our relationship deepened, she noticed patterns in my family dynamics that I had been blind to. One night over dinner, she gently questioned why Sarah, a qualified nurse, continually needed financial bailouts. When I defended my sister, explaining her bad luck with toxic workplaces, Laura asked how many jobs constituted a pattern. She suggested that perhaps my help was enabling dependency rather than supporting growth. I bristled at first, but could not shake the uncomfortable truth in her observations. Laura never issued ultimatums about my family or how I spent my money. Instead, she asked questions that made me reflect on the long-term consequences of my assistance. Was I really helping them? By preventing them from experiencing financial reality? The question haunted me, but making changes felt impossible. They needed me, or at least that is what I believed. Everything reached a turning point when the economy took a downturn. Tech Solutions announced company-wide cuts, and my salary was reduced by 30%. My stock options were frozen, and the annual bonus I had come to rely on was canceled indefinitely. At the same time, Laura and I had gotten engaged and were saving for our wedding and a down payment on a house. For the first time in years, I sat down and reviewed my finances comprehensively. The numbers were alarming. Nearly 60% of my now reduced income was going to family support. Sarah's irregular employment meant I was essentially paying her rent continuously. Jake had extended his 4-year degree program into its 6th year, with no graduation date in sight. Melissa had chosen one of the most expensive private universities, expecting me to cover all costs. My mother, though working, still relied on me for any unexpected expenses. Laura helped me create a sustainable budget that allowed for some family support but prioritized our future together. The reality was clear. I could no longer maintain the level of financial assistance my family had grown accustomed to. Making this decision felt like tearing off a limb, but continuing on the current path would eventually bankrupt me emotionally and financially. I arranged a family dinner to explain my situation. The anxiety leading up to that evening was overwhelming. I rehearsed what to say countless times, trying to find the right words to explain without sounding selfish. Part of me hoped they would understand and support my decision, maybe even express gratitude for all I had done over the years. Their reactions shattered that hope immediately. My mother did not raise her voice, but her quiet statement, "I will manage," somehow carried more guilt than 1,000 accusations. She mentioned her arthritis was getting worse, though she had never mentioned any pain before this conversation. The implication was clear: any health deterioration would be directly my fault. Sarah was less subtle. She immediately blamed Laura, calling her the woman who changed you. According to Sarah, I was abandoning family values because of outside influence. She reminded me of all the sacrifices our mother had made and suggested I was betraying that legacy. When I mentioned her nursing career should provide financial stability, she stormed out, saying I had always been jealous of her freedom. Jake initially seemed understanding, nodding and saying he could pick up more hours at his part-time campus job. This brief moment of maturity gave me hope until I later discovered his apparent acceptance was merely strategic. Behind my back, he was already planning ways to maintain his funding through emotional manipulation. Melissa cried throughout the conversation, making me feel like I was canceling her future rather than asking her to apply for scholarships and consider more affordable education options. When I suggested community college for 2 years before transferring, she accused me of thinking she was not smart enough for university. Within days, extended family members began calling. Aunts and uncles who had never shown interest in our financial struggles suddenly had strong opinions about my responsibilities. Cousins I spoke to once a year at Christmas were sending messages expressing disappointment. Family friends approached me at church, asking why I was turning my back on my mother after everything she had done. The pressure mounted daily. My phone became a source of anxiety, with each notification potentially carrying another guilt trip or accusation. Friends began taking sides based on the story my siblings were sharing, one where I had suddenly become wealthy and greedy, abandoning my struggling family on a selfish whim. Laura became a target. Sarah sent her messages accusing her of manipulating me for financial gain. Family members she had never met were leaving comments on her social media questioning her character. One distant cousin even contacted her workplace, implying she was providing unethical financial advice to clients. The stress affected my work performance. I had trouble concentrating during meetings and missed deadlines for the first time in my career. Sleep became elusive and I developed persistent headaches and stomach problems. Laura suggested therapy, but that felt like another expense I could not justify. Then came the discoveries that transformed my uneasiness into clarity. While claiming she could not afford rent, Sarah posted photos of her new car on social media. She had told me she needed emergency dental surgery, but the photos showed her celebrating at an expensive restaurant the same day the procedure was supposedly scheduled. A college administrator called about an issue with Jake's tuition payment. During our conversation, she mentioned Jake had withdrawn from most classes 3 semesters ago. The tuition money I had been sending was not going toward education. Further investigation revealed his gambling problem with thousands of dollars lost on sports betting sites. Most devastating was discovering my mother had known about these deceptions. When confronted, she defended my siblings, saying they were just trying to find themselves and that family protected one another. She had actively helped them craft convincing stories to ensure my continued financial support. The final blow came when I discovered a family group chat I had not been included in. Someone had accidentally added me, giving me access to months of conversations. They discussed strategies for extracting money, celebrated successful manipulations, and even mocked my gullibility. My mother participated in these discussions, offering advice on which approaches would be most effective with me. When I confronted each family member individually, they denied everything despite the evidence. Sarah claimed the chat was just jokes taken out of context. Jake said I was overreacting to normal sibling banter. Melissa insisted she had been pressured by the others to participate. My mother cried and asked how I could think so poorly of her after everything she had sacrificed. The breaking point came during a dinner for my mother's birthday. I had temporarily reduced support but was still sending what I could afford. Despite this, they had planned what can only be described as an ambush intervention. Each family member arrived with prepared talking points about my failings as a son and brother. Sarah began by questioning Laura's presence, suggesting family matters should be handled without outsiders. When Laura politely offered to step away, Sarah became more aggressive, implying Laura was only interested in me for financial security. She brought up Laura's parents' divorce as evidence of her inability to understand real family commitment. Jake arrived with 2 friends. I had never met large men who stood silently behind him in what felt like an intimidation tactic. Throughout dinner, he made passive-aggressive comments about people who forgot where they came from once they got a little money. His friends nodded in agreement, creating an atmosphere of unspoken threat. Extended family members joined in sharing stories of other families torn apart by selfishness, clearly drawing parallels to my situation. An aunt described her friend whose son had abandoned her in her time of need, leading to depression and early death. The message was not subtle. What broke me completely was my mother's statement. After everyone had taken their turn, she looked at me with tears and said, "You have changed, Horace. The son I raised would never turn his back on family. After everything we have been through, after all my sacrifices, this is how you repay me." That night, as we prepared to leave, I overheard Jake and Sarah discussing loan applications they had submitted using my information as a co-signer. They laughed about how I would never let their credit be ruined, so I would end up paying anyway. The casual way they discussed financial fraud involving my name showed how entitled they felt to my resources. Laura, who had maintained remarkable composure throughout the evening despite the attacks, finally broke down in tears in the car. Seeing her hurt because of my family clarified everything. I drove in silence, a plan forming in my mind. This could not continue. That night, Laura and I had an hours-long conversation about boundaries, family obligations, and our future. She never pressured me to cut ties, but helped me see that my current relationship with my family was destructive for everyone involved, including them. Real love sometimes meant allowing others to face consequences and grow through struggle. I spent the entire next day creating a comprehensive document detailing every dollar I had provided over the past 7 years. The total was staggering, over $300,000, beyond normal living expenses. I drafted a detailed email explaining my decision to end financial support entirely, with the exception of a modest monthly stipend, directly to my mother that would be non-negotiable and final. The email included proof of the deceptions I had uncovered, screenshots of the group chat, and documentation of Jake's gambling and Sarah's misrepresentations. I explained that I would be changing my phone number and email address, creating separation to break the cycle of manipulation. I stated clearly, that any attempts to take out loans or credit in my name would result in immediate legal action. Before sending it, I checked my credit report and placed a freeze on any new applications. I changed all my passwords and set up fraud alerts. Then I hit send, turned off my phone, and took my first full breath in years. The aftermath was as explosive as expected. Jake's friends sent threatening messages before I changed my number. Sarah spread rumors that I had been abusive throughout our childhood, creating a fictional history to explain my cruelty. Extended family members chose sides, with most believing the narrative that portrayed me as the villain. My professional reputation came under attack when anonymous reviews appeared on industry websites, questioning my character and reliability. Clients received emails from unknown sources, suggesting I was untrustworthy. I later learned my siblings had orchestrated this campaign, hoping employment problems would force me back into the family fold. Through it all, I remained firm in my decision. Each attack only confirmed I had made the right choice. The family I had sacrificed everything for over the years was willing to destroy my career and relationship out of entitlement to my financial support. The realization was painful but freeing. For the first time, I saw the difference between love and obligation, between helping and enabling. The initial healing process was challenging. I began therapy to address the guilt and untangle the complex family dynamics that had shaped my sense of responsibility. The therapist helped me understand that my self-worth had become dangerously linked to my provider role, making it difficult to separate financial support from love. Laura and her family became my support system. Having grown up in a healthy family environment, she showed me what boundaries and mutual respect looked like in practice. Her parents welcomed me without expectation or demand, offering guidance only when asked and respecting our independence as a couple. I established strict protocols for any family contact. My new phone number was given only to essential contacts. Email filters sent family messages to a separate folder I could check when emotionally prepared. Social media accounts were either deleted or made private. These boundaries created space for me to focus on rebuilding my sense of self beyond the provider role. My career became a positive focus. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, I could fully engage with projects and opportunities. Within 6 months, I had received a promotion that partially offset the previous salary reduction. Laura and I began serious wedding planning, choosing a date and venue that reflected our values rather than others' expectations. Most importantly, I learned self-care and the permission to prioritize my needs. Simple pleasures, like reading a book without interruption or enjoying dinner without checking my phone for crisis messages, became possible. I discovered hobbies and interests that had been suppressed under the weight of family obligation. The most surprising developments came after approximately 8 months of minimal contact with my family. Necessity had forced changes I could never have anticipated. Melissa reached out first with what seemed like a genuine apology. Without my financial support, she had applied for scholarships and work-study programs, discovering capabilities she never knew she possessed. She had also transferred to a state university that offered better value for her educational goals. My mother, faced with actual financial reality, had found a better job through a church connection. The position as an office manager provided health benefits and regular hours that improved her quality of life. She began taking financial management classes at a community center and expressed pride in her new independence. Sarah maintained stable employment for the first time in her adult life. Without the safety net of my support, she had addressed workplace issues professionally rather than quitting. She had even received a promotion to charge nurse, a position of responsibility that built her confidence in ways that dependency never could. Most significantly, Jake had entered a rehabilitation program for his gambling addiction. The wake-up call came when he faced actual consequences for his behavior, including nearly losing his apartment. He connected with a support group and was finally completing his degree requirements with newfound focus. My approach to rebuilding relationships was cautious and methodical. I first met with Melissa at a neutral coffee shop, listening to her experiences without judgment. We established clear expectations. I would offer advice and emotional support, but no financial assistance. She accepted these terms with a maturity that surprised me. Conversations with my mother were more complex. Years of enabling behavior could not be undone overnight. Our first meeting was tearful on both sides. She acknowledged her role in creating unhealthy dynamics, while I admitted my part in perpetuating them. We agreed to weekly phone calls focused on emotional connection rather than problem solving. Sarah and Jake required more time and evidence of changed behavior. When we eventually reconnected, I offered knowledge and guidance instead of money. I helped Sarah create a retirement savings plan and advised Jake on rebuilding his credit. These skills empowered them more than cash ever had. The transformation in our relationships was gradual but profound. Without money as the central connecting force, we discovered other ways to support and care for each other. Family gatherings became about shared experiences rather than opportunities to request financial help. Holidays centered on gratitude and connection, instead of material expectations. Our wedding was a celebration of not just Laura and me, but of healthier family dynamics. Not everyone attended. Some relationships remained too damaged for immediate repair. Those who came, however, participated with genuine joy rather than resentment or calculation. My mother danced with Laura's father, an image of family integration I had once thought impossible. My professional growth continued alongside personal healing. I became passionate about financial literacy, eventually starting a community program teaching basic money management skills. Many participants came from backgrounds similar to my family's, trapped in cycles of dependency and financial insecurity. Breaking these patterns became a mission that gave purpose to my painful experience. My relationship with my mother evolved into one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. She began volunteering with my financial literacy program, sharing her journey from dependency to self-sufficiency. Her perspective as someone who had navigated this transition provided credibility and hope to participants. My siblings each found their path to independence. Sarah eventually apologized for her attacks on Laura and made genuine efforts to build a relationship with her. Jake completed his degree and secured entry-level employment in his field. Melissa graduated with honors and minimal student debt, thanks to her scholarship diligence. Extended family members, who had been quick to judge, gradually acknowledged the positive changes in our family system. Some even admitted they had enabled destructive patterns through their own misplaced sense of family loyalty. These conversations expanded the healing beyond my immediate family circle. Through this difficult journey, I learned lessons that transformed my understanding of both family and love. True love sometimes requires allowing others to experience the natural consequences of their actions. Growth often emerges from struggle rather than rescue. Setting boundaries is not selfish, but an act of self-respect that ultimately benefits everyone involved. I discovered that financial support without accountability creates dependency rather than help. Money can temporarily solve problems, but rarely addresses underlying issues. By removing the financial buffer that prevented my family from facing reality, I paradoxically gave them the opportunity to develop resilience and self-efficacy. Most importantly, I learned that genuine relationships survive and even thrive with healthy boundaries. Those connections based solely on what I could provide dissolved, but the authentic bonds grew stronger. Real love remains when the money stops flowing. Family obligations should never come at the cost of your self-respect or future. As I continue navigating this ongoing journey toward balanced family relationships, I wonder about your experiences with financial expectations from family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? What was the outcome? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Remember that prioritizing your well-being is not selfishness, but necessary self-care. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own boundary-setting journey.